Hi everybody, this is God's Girl G, and thank you so much for joining me today. For those of you who are new to my channel, welcome. And for those of you returning to this channel to view this video and you're not already subscribed, I am going to encourage you to do so by clicking the subscribe icon below. And if during the course of this video you hear something that you like, I'm going to ask that you click the thumbs up, comment below, or better yet, share this video with someone who you feel could benefit from this information. With that stated, let's get into today's discussion. One of the biggest obstacles that I had to overcome after my divorce a number of years ago was the obstacle that I built up around myself. I did not ever want to put myself in a position of vulnerability ever again. Being vulnerable, it left me exposed really to someone who meant me no good at all. It's amazing how the word vulnerable brings with it feelings of fear and anxiety. Sadly, when we think of the word vulnerability, we also think with it all of the experiences on the negative side that we've had when we've allowed ourselves to be vulnerable. And as a result, it makes vulnerability look like a weakness. And of course, Webster's dictionary doesn't help much either. They define vulnerability as susceptible to physical or emotional attack or harm. Now, contrary to what many folks were raised to believe, vulnerability is actually a measure of strength and courage, not weakness. Vulnerability is an act of courage because you can only be vulnerable when you are your authentic self versus hiding behind a mask to appease other people. Vulnerability is also the driving force of connection. It's brave, it's definitely tender, and it's impossible to genuinely connect with someone without it. We've made ourselves strong, we've toughened up, hardened up, and protected ourselves from being hurt. We've protected ourselves from vulnerability and disallowed surrender. But here's the problem. When we close down our vulnerability, we are shielded from hurt, but we are also shielded from love, intimacy, and connection. All those things come to us through the same door. When we close it to one, we close it to all. Now, vulnerability does not mean oversharing and offering every detail of your life up for consumption by anyone. It's about intention. There are those that you hold close, or at least you want to, who are worth taking the risk of vulnerability for. You open up, you let them know you offer some of yourself and hope it will be received. Then there are those who know you, but who may not have earned your vulnerability. Which brings up another point. Your vulnerability has to be earned. And you, my friend, have to be ready to see when someone deserves your vulnerability. Vulnerability is openness to experiences, people, and uncertainty. It's terrifying at times and always brave. So what does the Bible say about vulnerability? James, the 5th chapter, verse 16 says, "Therefore confess your sins to one another and pray for one another so that you may be healed." Notice that this verse doesn't limit healing to physical illness. It also includes mental and emotional needs that can sometimes result from our spiritual shortcomings. Now, humanly, it is natural to resist vulnerability. Our culture here, at least in America, emphasizes independence, autonomy, and self-sufficiency. And while these are not entirely wrong, beyond a certain point, they can actually inhibit your spiritual growth. The Bible actually describes Jesus as our perfect example of vulnerability because it says that when Jesus became man, he emptied himself by assuming the form of a servant and became sin for us and was tempted in every way as we are. The example of Jesus points to the reality that our personal vulnerability is an essential part of our spiritual growth in the process of conforming to His image. Next, I want to talk about the importance of vulnerability when it comes to relationships, because it's very important. Relationships are not static. Therefore, you must choose to continually generate a closer, deeper connection, despite the fact that you have no control over your partner's response to you. You must trust that they value you as much as you value them and share yourself openly, or risk drifting apart anyway. By choosing vulnerability in a relationship, you'll see that it's not submissive, powerless, or weak at all. Choosing to be vulnerable is definitely an act of bravery, one that prioritizes mutual connection over fear and rejection or being misunderstood. One of the biggest lessons that I am learning is that withdrawing from vulnerability and bottling up emotions is a surefire way to cause trouble in a relationship. And when broken people try to build relationships, trouble is already present in large doses. To be vulnerable, you have to take the following deliberate actions. First, ask for what you need. In order to do this, you need to understand yourself. You cannot be vulnerable or communicate the truth about who you are if you don't know your own truth. 2, be honest with your emotions. Acknowledging and accepting your emotions for what they are without judging, shaming, or dismissing is a sign of emotional maturity. And sharing them with others is a sign of vulnerability that indicates you are willing to strengthen your connection with someone by sharing how you feel. 3, ask for what you want. There is real courage in admitting that you're struggling and in need of a helping hand. You're not doing anybody any favors by dismissing your pain for fear of being a burden to others. It gives a chance for someone who loves you to respond to your needs and presents an opportunity for closeness. 4, express what you really think. Sometimes it's easier to keep our thoughts and opinions to ourselves because we don't want to rock the boat. Now, while that might be appropriate at times, vulnerability means sharing our point of view and cultivating relationships where we can be honest about what we think. 5, slow down and be present. Be present with others. A big part of embracing vulnerability is being present with others, even though it may feel uncomfortable or awkward. Look them in the eye, listen empathetically to what they're saying, and make sure all your attention is on them without a smartphone nearby. Opening up your heart is often one of the most challenging things about love. And even though there are no guarantees when it comes to relationships, what is certain is that vulnerability is the vehicle to greater intimacy, deeper relationships, and more authentic love. To be vulnerable is not to show weakness, but to recognize strength. It's one of the bravest and best things that you can do. Thank you for joining me today. And don't forget to subscribe, like, comment, and share. Bye.